The bulldozer hit my boathouse at 9:15 a.m. While the HOA president filmed and sipped champagne. Wood exploded. Cedar beams hand-cut 60 years ago snapped under steel as I stood barefoot in my driveway shouting at men who wouldn't even look at me. A sheriff's cruiser idled nearby. No sirens, no help. Valid permit, the deputy said, eyes glued to a clipboard. The roof collapsed. Green paint peeled away in sheets. That place wasn't just wood, it was the last thing my family built together. Vivica Drummond parked 50 feet away, smiling into her phone like this was a victory lap. Just documenting, she said. I felt the rage rise, but my voice stayed calm. You don't own this land. She paused, lowered her phone for half a second, then smiled wider. Enjoy your day. What she didn't know was simple. The paperwork she trusted was about to destroy everything she owned. Vivica Drummond didn't introduce herself. She ordered the foreman to keep going. Finish it, she said, not even looking at me, one manicured finger circling in the air like she was directing traffic. The bulldozer roared back to life on her command. She moved the way people do when they think the ground belongs to them. Slow, confident, untouchable. Her sunglasses never came off. Her phone stayed raised, recording every second as if she were building a case or a trophy. I'm the HOA president, she announced to no one in particular. This structure is non-compliant. That was Vivica in one sentence. Power wrapped in procedure, cruelty dressed up as compliance. Her motive was simple, and she only needed to say it once. Standards protect property values, she said. People like you hurt the community. People like me, legacy owners, old houses, unmovable problems. She waved the permit again, smiling as if paper made her invincible. She talked about fines, liens, timelines, 90 days, then foreclosure, like she was reciting a recipe she'd used before. Calm, practiced. Behind her, neighbors watched from their porches but said nothing. That silence was her real authority. When the last beam fell, Vivica finally turned to me. You could have avoided this, she said softly. Cooperation goes a long way. She walked back to her SUV demolition, finished confidence intact. What she didn't realize was that she'd just crossed from enforcement into exposure, and I was done cooperating. The sticker showed up the next morning. Fluorescent orange, 8 inches tall, slapped dead center on my front door like a warning label. Notice of violation in bold black letters visible from the road. I peeled it off and felt the glue fight back, stubborn meant to leave a scar. Architectural non-compliance, it read. Failure to remit outstanding balance. Outstanding balance. Over a boathouse that no longer existed. By noon, a second notice arrived, this one taped to my mailbox. Then an email. Then a certified letter waiting at the post office. Different formats. Same message. Pay up, fall in line. When I drove into town for groceries, a neighbor I barely knew leaned out of his truck window and said quietly, "Careful, she's coming for you." That night, Gus from 3 houses down knocked with a beer in hand, eyes darting like he didn't want to be seen. She always starts with the stickers, he said, then the fines. What happens after that? He hesitated. Liens. Foreclosure if you don't bend fast enough. It sounded insane. Over paperwork, over colors, over control. But when I woke up the next morning there, it was a lien pending notice filed against my property. Layer 1 wasn't loud. It was surgical, and it was meant to make me feel alone. The HOA meeting was held in the clubhouse I'd never been allowed to use. I walked into 30 folding chairs, a long table up front, and Vivica already seated at the center like she'd been born there. Clipboard, binder, gavel she didn't legally need, but used anyway. She didn't look up when I arrived. We'll move quickly, she said. Some of us value our time. When it was my turn, I explained calmly that the structure they demolished predated the HOA, that I'd requested a review, that I was willing to resolve the issue reasonably. Vivica smiled the way people do when they've rehearsed winning. Legacy Properties agreed to comply, she said. Section 4.7. She slid a printed packet across the table, highlighted, tabbed, weaponized. And the outstanding balance, I asked. Transferred with ownership, she replied. $11,700. Murmurs rippled through the room. That includes penalties your grandfather ignored, she added smoothly. 90 days delinquent triggers enforcement. Enforcement meaning, I asked. She tapped the gavel once. Lien. Then foreclosure. Someone in the back stood up. That happened to the Reagans. Vivica cut him off. That matter was resolved. Resolved. Like a body buried. I left the meeting knowing this wasn't one neighbor abusing power. This was a system designed to grind people down quietly. I didn't go home. I went to my grandfather's workshop. Dust coated everything. Old receipts, hand-drawn plans, yellowed envelopes that smelled like pipe tobacco and oil. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for understanding. At the bottom of a filing cabinet, I found the deed. Not my deed. The deed. 42 acres, not 2.8. The description didn't stop at my shoreline. It referenced access roads, common areas, the lakebed itself. Language so old it felt stitched instead of printed. Tucked behind it was a photograph, my grandfather shaking hands with another man in front of a sign that read, "Coming soon." On the back, a note in his handwriting, "Partnership dissolved. Master parcel retained." My pulse picked up. The next morning, I drove 60 miles to the county recorder's office and asked for everything. Microfilm, plats, covenants no one had bothered to read in decades. That's when the picture snapped into focus. The HOA hadn't bought what they thought they bought. The clubhouse, the pool, the roads. They were built on land that never left my family. And worse, they'd been collecting dues, issuing fines, and foreclosing homes on property they didn't legally control. This wasn't about aesthetics. It was about money. And suddenly the demolition made sense. They weren't punishing me for a violation. They were trying to scare me before I noticed the truth. Standing in the county office with those records in my hands, the anger finally landed. Not loud, not explosive, but cold and focused. Vivica hadn't just crossed a line. She'd exposed her entire operation, and I was done being quiet. I didn't confront Vivica. I went around her. The county surveyor arrived 2 days later with a tripod, a drone case, and the kind of quiet confidence that comes from numbers that don't argue. He set up at the edge of my driveway and started pulling coordinates from the original plats I'd brought from the recorder's office. "Who authorized this?" a woman demanded from across the road. "Vivica." She stormed over with 2 board members in tow, clipboard raised like a badge. "You're trespassing on HOA common land," she said. "Cease immediately." The surveyor didn't look up. "Ma'am, I'm mapping a privately held parcel, owned by," who she snapped. He finally met her eyes. According to the county hymn, that was the first time her confidence cracked. By afternoon, red flags dotted the neighborhood, literal ones, marking encroachments, driveways that crossed lines they shouldn't, a retaining wall that extended too far, a garage foundation 6 feet onto land that wasn't deeded to its owner. Vivica started making calls, fast ones, angry ones. I made my own. The tax assessor returned my message before sunset. She'd reviewed the parcel history and noticed something the HOA hadn't accounted for. The clubhouse pool parking lot and private roads weren't exempt. They weren't public. They were taxable and no one had paid. 6 years of back taxes, penalties, interest. "Do you want us to open a formal inquiry?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Please." The next morning an official notice went out. 30 days to cure delinquency or face enforcement. Vivica responded the only way she knew how, pressure. My driveway was blocked by an HOA maintenance truck performing repairs. My mailbox was tagged. Anonymous letters showed up in neighbors' mailboxes, calling me a thief. The neighborhood group chat lit up with warnings about unauthorized surveys and hostile actors. I documented everything. Dates, times, photos, police report numbers. And then the call came. Leonard Drummond, her husband, the lawyer. "Max," he said smoothly like we were old friends. "Let's de-escalate." He offered to waive my lien. Then 6 figures to make this go away. When I declined, he tried fear. Lawsuits, delays, resources you can't imagine. I ended the call with one sentence. "You demolished property you don't own." Silence. That's when they stopped bluffing. The emergency HOA meeting was announced for that night. Mandatory attendance. I didn't go. I didn't need to. Gus recorded it from the back row. Vivica stood at the podium under fluorescent lights, eyes bright, jaw tight. She opened with unity talk, community, protection, investment. Then Leonard took over. "We're implementing a special assessment," he said. $2,500 per household, due in 30 days. The room exploded. Someone shouted about the survey flags. Someone else asked why the HOA hadn't paid taxes. Dana, quiet, precise Dana, stood up and asked about a payment to a consulting company that didn't exist. Leonard tried to adjourn. Vivica grabbed the microphone. "This is an attack," she yelled, "by one man trying to steal your homes." Phones came out. Voices rose. Chairs scraped. They left early, literally fled through a side door, while residents shouted after them. By morning, support had collapsed. 4 homeowners called me directly. Then 10. Then 20. All asking the same question. Is it true I told them the truth? Calmly. With documents. That afternoon, a contractor knocked on my door, young, nervous. He'd been paid cash to sabotage my septic. He showed me the texts, offered to testify. I filed the report, and then the story broke. The reporter ran it online first. Headline sharp enough to cut HOA. Built an empire on land it didn't own. Financial records, survey overlays, interviews. By evening it was everywhere. At 6:02 p.m., my phone rang. County prosecutor's office. We're opening a criminal investigation, she said. We're also placing the HOA into temporary receivership. She paused. There will be a public hearing. Tuesday, courthouse. I hung up and stood at the window, watching neighbors gather in small knots, talking for the first time without fear. Vivica had tried to bury me with paperwork. Instead, she'd handed me the one thing she couldn't control, a public reckoning. And Tuesday was coming. The courthouse was already full when I walked in. Standing room only. Neighbors packed shoulder to shoulder, whispers bouncing off the stone walls. Cameras lined the back like metal insects. Vivica sat at the front row, spine-straight sunglasses perched on her head like armor. Leonard leaned close, whispering fast. The commissioner called the hearing to order. Vivica stood first. This is a hostile takeover, she said, voice polished and loud. A disgruntled homeowner abusing legal technicalities to extort an entire community. Murmurs rippled. Heads turned toward me. I didn't interrupt. I didn't react. She waved her hand toward the crowd. Property values rose under my leadership. Standards matter. Order matters. The commissioner held up a hand. Mr. Cordell, your response. I stepped forward. I'm not here to take anyone's home, I said. I'm here because the HOA never owned what it claimed and used that lie to destroy property and foreclose families. Vivica scoffed, sharp and dismissive. Prove it. The commissioner nodded once. Proceed. That was the last moment Vivica had control of the room. The lights dimmed. The first image filled the screen, a clean overlay of red and blue lines. Original parcel boundaries, current structures. The room went silent. I didn't explain. I let the image work. The surveyor stepped forward. 11 homes encroach onto privately held land, including the HOA president's garage. 6 feet. Gasps. Phones rose. Next slide. The clubhouse, pool, parking lot, roads, all highlighted in red. Built entirely on land not deeded to the HOA, the surveyor continued. No recorded easement, no transfer. Vivica stood halfway out of her chair. That's impossible. I clicked again. Bank statements. Highlighted transfers. Over 3 years, I said $400,000 routed through related party companies. No deliverables, no competitive bids. Leonard shot up. Objection. The commissioner cut him off. Sit down. I clicked once more. A foreclosure timeline. A $900 lien. A forced sale. A resale 6 months later at a massive profit. A woman in the crowd covered her mouth. This is not a mistake, I said. It's a pattern. Vivica's face drained of color, and then she spoke too fast, too loud. I was compensated for my time. The room froze. The commissioner leaned forward. Mrs. Drummond, did you just admit to taking unapproved payments from HOA funds? Leonard grabbed her arm. Don't answer that. Vivica yanked free. I built this place, she snapped. I made it worth something. That was it. The silence afterward was absolute. The commissioner didn't raise her voice. Mrs. Drummond, she said calmly, this board is placing Mirror Lake Estates, HOA, into immediate receivership. A collective inhale swept the room. All accounts are frozen. Financial records will be referred to the county prosecutor. Leonard started backing toward the aisle. Bailiff, the commissioner said, please remain. Vivica shook her head, laughing once sharp brittle. You can't do this. I stepped forward one last time. I'm withdrawing all claims against the homeowners, I said. They were victims. Confusion flickered, then relief, then something like gratitude. I'm offering a replacement, I continued. A community land trust. Fixed ground rent, no fines, no secret contracts. The commissioner nodded. Noted. Vivica's voice broke. This is my neighborhood. Leonard pulled her toward the exit as the bailiff moved in. As they disappeared through the side door, the room finally exhaled. The commissioner turned back to the crowd. This hearing is adjourned. People stood, talking, crying, shaking hands. Outside under the courthouse lights, neighbors gathered around me. No clipboard, no gavel, just people. Vivica's empire hadn't fallen with a scream. It collapsed in silence. We never went back inside the courthouse. People spilled into the parking lot under the yellow lights, standing in loose circles, like they didn't quite know what to do with their hands now that the tension was gone. Someone laughed too loud, then apologized. Someone else cried without trying to hide it. For the first time since the bulldozer showed up, nobody was whispering. Gus shook my hand, then pulled me into a hug that smelled like motor oil and aftershave. "You did it," he said. "You really did it." Dana came next, eyes red but steady. "I thought I was crazy for questioning the numbers," she said. She made me feel small. "You weren't," I told her. "None of you were." Neighbors I barely knew thanked me. Others just nodded, the kind of nod that said, "I see you now." No speeches. No victory laps. Just people breathing easier, shoulders dropping, phones finally going back into pockets. Across the lot, reporters hovered, but I didn't walk over. I stayed with the residents. This wasn't about headlines anymore. It was about the quiet shift you could feel when fear lets go of a place. For the first time in months, I stood still, without bracing for the next hit. My phone buzzed, then buzzed again. I put it on speaker so everyone nearby could hear. "Mr. Cordell," the assistant prosecutor said, voice clipped and professional, "the county has officially placed Mirror Lake Estates HOA into receivership. All board authority is suspended effective immediately." A ripple moved through the crowd. Bank accounts are frozen. Subpoenas are being issued tonight. Criminal charges will follow based on today's testimony. Someone exhaled a shaky laugh. She continued, "Regarding the common areas, clubhouse, pool, roads, the county confirms they sit on privately held land. We'll coordinate with township officials on transfer and public access." I thanked her and ended the call. A man near the edge of the group said quietly, "So, it's over." "No," I said. "It's finished." There was a difference. No more surprise liens. No more secret fines. No more threats dressed up as rules. The system that had crushed people one envelope at a time was gone, cut off, cleanly, without drama. And nobody had lost their home. Someone asked, "What happens now?" I held up a thin folder I'd brought but hoped I wouldn't need. "This," I said, "a community land trust." I explained it simply. Fixed ground rent, low, predictable, no architectural harassment, no fines without due process. Homeowners keep their homes. The land stays protected. The clubhouse goes to the township, open to everyone with priority access for residents. No one argued. A woman smiled and said, "So, no more clipboards." A few people laughed. Real laughter this time. As the crowd thinned, Emma walked up beside me, slipped her arm through mine, and leaned her head on my shoulder like she used to when she was a kid. "Mom would have loved this," she said. I nodded, watching headlights disappear down the road that had caused so much trouble simply by existing on the wrong paperwork. Later, when the lot was nearly empty, I stayed behind alone for a moment. I took the folded photograph from my jacket, the one of my grandfather, shaking hands in front of a sign that promised something better. I smoothed the crease with my thumb. "Still taking care of her," I said quietly. The courthouse lights clicked off one by one. The night settled. Not heavy, just calm. For the first time since everything started, I didn't feel like I was fighting. I felt like I was home. If an HOA ever tells you they own everything, check the paperwork, and don't stay quiet.